choosing the best workshop today, she says with great optimism and hope. I've got some leaflets as well with some of my details on that for any of those who are interested after the session. Oh, thank you! Thank you so much, right, so kind. It's good to get it before the session. It's like when you say thank you very much for making a meal. It's good to have it before. Thank you so much, that's so kind. So this morning, feeling good, teaching well, thank you very much. My name is Lavelle. I am the Hive of Wellbeing. I know that from what David Cameron was saying earlier, this whole idea of holding a mirror up to children as teachers, you hold a mirror up to the children and you say, you know, what do you see? How can I support you to get to that different place? I suppose my role is to hold a mirror up to you today, and you're all looking very glamorous and beautiful, which is great, but it's to hold the mirror up to you today to ask you, how are you? How are things going for you? How are you feeling? Because it's a very simple equation. We know intuitively to teach well we need to be in a good feeling place, but it's not always easy to get to that place, and it's not always as simple to feel good in the jobs that we do. So what I want to do today is to just in the next 45 minutes, I've just had to usher out a Minister of Education. I mean, that's quite a first for me. But what I'd like to do in the next 45 minutes is just take you on a little journey regarding some aspects of your well-being. So to introduce myself, I think I'll just put up this slide first of all, just to let you see where we're going. Now, the reason I put, well, John was talking there about CPD, so I thought I was going to put it all in here. So the reason I put up this slide, though, is to make the point, too, that we are whole people. We are not just our pieces of paper, not just our qualifications. We are whole people, and we have so much to give. Every single child who comes into contact with us, has an interaction with us, gets the whole of us, and we get the whole of them. So it's far greater than just simply the qualifications we have. My background is education. I've been in education now for 22 years. I was a class teacher, I was a principal teacher, I was a head teacher. I was in Edinburgh, West Lothian and East Lothian, and I was quality improvement officer for 18 months on a secondment on curriculum for excellence in East Lothian. I was so good at that job that I had to move abroad. We'll not go into those details, but I worked out in the Middle East, out in Abu Dhabi for 3 years as a head teacher in a school there, but it was part of a 3 to 18 campus. I was a head teacher of a primary school. I was asked to be the staff welfare officer, so I was slightly cheerier than the other managers. Again, it's not about the pieces of paper, people, it's about the personality, isn't it? But I gave out my number to the teachers who were coming into the school, who were new to the school, thinking that they maybe want to call me to ask me about, you know, where is the supermarket, my plumbing's all walled up here, can you give me a hand, who do I get in touch with, etc. But actually what I did was I'd given out a helpline. I didn't know it at the time, but I'd given out a helpline. And when I was a quality improvement officer and a head teacher, and then a head teacher in a school out in Abu Dhabi, I recognised that people have really serious stuff happening in their own lives. And we make an assumption sometimes that people are just coming and leaving everything at the door and coming into the working life saying, "Good morning!" Because we've all got an emotional life. We bring all of our emotions into the work that we do. And when we're not feeling good, it does have an impact. I found that that number then became a helpline to teachers who were saying things like, "Claire, I can't come in tomorrow because my marriage has just broken down. Claire, I can't come in tomorrow because I've got these panic attacks that I'm really struggling with my anxiety," and a whole host of other reasons. So I decided to set up something called the Hive of Wellbeing. Why the bees? Well, the metaphor of the bees is that, you know, just like the bees, as teachers, we are single creatures, sometimes quite isolated in our classrooms and working on from place to place with our children in the best way that we possibly can. We're industrious, we're hardworking, and we feel that isolation at times, but we thrive in community, we thrive in connection. And when John Swinney there was talking about collaboration, what I've done is I've set up this Hive of Wellbeing service, but I also run sessions in Dalkeith Country Park on a fortnightly basis to invite teachers to come along to talk about the things in their lives that are impacting on their emotional well-being, that are impacting on their life in school. So we talk about things like workload, we talk about things like compassion, we talk about things like trust, accountability, all of these different issues which can bear down on us as teachers and as educators. And it's about our relationship with work. How do we develop a much more positive relation with work? So that's what we're about today. So what I'm going to chat a bit about today is this whole notion of that external life, those expectations, the accountability that was spoken about earlier, the behaviours and the events that take place in our schools, the behaviours of our students, the behaviours of some of our colleagues and our managers. And look at, as well, internally, where are you with that? How are you responding to that? And this is one definition of that resilience, an internal representation of an external circumstance. When I'm internally resourced, when I feel that I've got that inner resourcefulness that I can support myself with the external circumstances, I might have that greater resilience. When internally I'm running on empty, not so much. So the waggle dance for today, because I've taken the bee metaphor a bit too far, not my stripy tights today, my wings, so that's good. But this is the main premise of today. Self-care is necessary for our survival, not just as educators. I'm not saying to you today, yeah, just feel good because get your job done and then go home and just, I don't really care about that. I do. I care about you as human beings. I care about you as whole people. So it's necessary for ourselves as educators and as human beings. And here are some of the things I'd like to speak to you about today. Now, it is going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, moments for discussion as well. But I think it's important to get some of these messages out and for you to take away the booklet, some ideas, and just chat amongst yourselves later on today about some of this stuff. The main thing for me, though, is our thoughts. Our thoughts are central to our self-care, and we'll talk about that as we go on a little bit longer. So, I'm going to start off with a few slides, so just relax, always with be mindful. Super. But I want to start with this quote from a lady called Audre Lorde, who's no longer with us, but Audre Lorde was a US civil rights activist and a feminist writer. And she says, I have come to believe that caring for myself is not self-indulgent. Caring for myself is an act of survival. And that's great. We know this intuitively, absolutely right. When you're on an aeroplane and they're talking about the oxygen mask, you know to put it on yourself first before you put it on other people. But as educators, how often do we do that for ourselves? How often do we look after ourselves before we're looking after everyone else? Not always. How often do we feel the guilt of, oh, I didn't get all that marking done, or didn't quite get to that, or I didn't get to that pupil today, or I didn't get to that parent, I didn't phone home about that. We have kind of these anxieties, and that can deplete us of our energy. In a paper by Christopher Day, who wrote a book called A Passion for Teaching, he spoke about this question he posed for leaders and for teachers, and the question was this: what makes you a dedicated professional? What makes you a dedicated teacher or educator? And almost all of the respondents talked about giving everything that they could, almost to the point of self-sacrifice. And he said, that's not the point. That's not the point. We need to think about how we self-replenish as educators to be in the best place possible to give to our pupils in the best way that we can. So I'm getting you in the mood for the Easter holidays coming up. I thought I'd show you air traffic control. Just a few slides and then discussion from you. So I think your jobs are a bit like being air traffic controllers. I think you've got a schedule for the day, you've got your plan all set out, you're averting all the emergency landers, and there's going to be no disasters in your watch. You've got it all ready. So you're up for it, you're excited, you think, yeah, come on, bring on the day. Woo, come on, kids! And then by Tuesday, this. And then we start to feel sometimes that sense of overwhelm, that sense of, oh God, I know I made them do all this work, but now I've got to mark it. What was I thinking? There's just so much going on, isn't there? And then there are other things coming at you left field. So at this point, I ask people to talk about, what is it that they're feeling? And most times people will say to me, stress. I feel stressed. And I think, well, what is that stress? We never really think about what that word means. So stress, one definition of it certainly, is a fear of the future, a fear of not meeting a need for survival in the future. If you think about it, the same physiology that we had when we were trying to defend ourselves from saber-toothed tigers is the same physiology we have when we're not meeting deadlines. So I ask people to consider, go to that place of what are you fearful of, what are you concerned about, what are you frightened of not meeting the need of. And a lot of people will say to me, oh, it's things like deadlines, it's things like, well, is it good enough? Do I feel good enough as a teacher? Am I doing the right thing? Do people think this is the right thing? We have a fear a lot of the time of what other people might be thinking about us, which is understandable. And when we hear about somebody becoming an officer of scrutiny, or whatever the exact title was, that makes us feel that, quite fearful at times as well, in terms of having that stress. But I say at this point, put it in perspective. You've got great training, you've got great professionalism, what is working well? And what can you do in order to take control of that kind of fear of what's coming up? Can we speak to a line manager? Can we speak to friends and family? Because if we don't, this could happen. Our stressful response becomes quite habituated. It becomes quite pathological. I worked with a lovely lady in Abu Dhabi. She's over 3,000 miles away. I feel safe talking to her, to you. If we could cut that out of the video, that would be good. But this lovely lady in Abu Dhabi, I thought I found the perfect teacher. I thought, I'm cloning you and I'm taking you back to Scotland. Wait till John Swinney meets you. Absolutely amazing. And in 3 months into everything being perfect, I changed the assembly timetable time for her class that day. This is the response. This is what happened. Because she habituated to a response of, it's not perfect, it's like us, I've not planned this. And then 3 months later, when she calmed down from that particular incident, we had the same again when I'd done something else wrong. I'm quite good at getting things wrong. But she'd done this again. So it made me realise that sometimes we need to be aware of what are our stressors and what are our tipping points. And when do we know we've gotten to empty? And when can we pull back from that before we get to that point? What can we do for ourselves? Here's another symptom of the stress. Sometimes we're done. We're absolutely done. I don't know about you, but you might have come across colleagues at times who are just spent. So the child comes in and goes, Mrs. McGlumshy, I was out last night and I went to Burger King and I was like, so much fun, I got a toy, see my toy. Mrs. McGlumshy's going, that's lovely, Tommy, in you come, hang your coat up, that's great, get our spelling books out. Mrs. McGlumshy is done, she's spent, and she's kind of switched off. She's kind of depersonalised from the situation because there's nothing much to give. Now, we know from the studies on depersonalisation that when we get to that kind of emotional state, sometimes we can feel quite resentful, sometimes we can get to a place of cynicism, we're just not feeling so good. So I ask you to consider, where am I with this, and what's going to get me back in touch with my passion? What's going to get me back in touch with my why? Here's another symptom. You know, we keep hearing from the media all these different figures about how many teachers are leaving. The last one I heard was 40%. 40% of Scottish teachers are leaving in the next 5 minutes. I mean, the next 5 years. The way it's reported, it feels like the next 5 minutes. Next 5 years. Well, what they don't tell you, they don't tell you how many teachers are retiring. They don't tell you about the figures of people who will be leaving anyway due to other circumstances. And in addition to that, 60% are staying. So what are we doing to support our lovely 60% of people who are staying and are dedicated in this profession? So it doesn't always feel good sometimes in education. It doesn't always feel good. Now, I'm not going to stay with this negative notion just now. This talk really picks up at 11 o'clock. You'll all be smiling and cheering. It's going to be great. But I do want us to consider this, because I know that we need space sometimes, not just to collaborate about the things in education. We need space sometimes to just say, this is how I feel. I feel quite overwhelmed. I feel this isn't working well. I just need to get this out. And then when I've got the head space, once I've let go of that heart space, I'll have the head space then to talk about the things that really matter. So let's spend just a minute or so talking to your nearest and dearest colleagues, and colleagues you trust who are with you today. Now, if they're not your nearest and dearest and you don't trust them, you might want to move now. Oh, that could be awkward. No, I get it. So what you might want to do just now is to just say to the person next to you or people next to you, what are some of the things sometimes that stop you feeling good about your teaching and about education? Over to you, please. Really pacey today, really quick. Anybody want to call out some of the things sometimes that stop them from feeling good about teaching?
Poor communication.
Poor communication, thank you so much. Lack of support. Our expectations around support. That's an interesting one, isn't it? What are our expectations around that? What are the thoughts we're having around that? Anything else?
Not feeling valued.
Not feeling valued. Not feeling valued, because value is not just about the financial incentives, is it? It's far greater than that. Fear of speaking out, not today, my friends. Super, but it's true sometimes, isn't it? That's that culture, isn't it? That culture of fear. Thank you so much.
Constantly changing the goalposts at short notice.
Yes, constantly changing.
One thing's happening in about 2 minutes or whatever, they
Yes.
change it again.
Constant flux, isn't it? It's the emotional energy that is going to, and sometimes when you've done a lot of work for whatever it was before, and then we're changing it, but I did all that work, and then that's where the devaluing can also be associated. Thank you so much. Anything else? Unrealistic expectations. And again, who's making those unrealistic expectations? Or do I have unrealistic expectations of other people having unrealistic expectations of me? So yes, no, thank you very much. We need to check in with ourselves sometimes and check in with other people about what they really do expect, because they may just change the goalposts as well. So yes, a lot going on. Anything else?
You're more than just a teacher.
Yes.
And people don't get that.
Yes, yes. There's a lovely paper by Jennifer Nias in 1996, I think it's called Teaching and Emotions, and she said if teachers are not allowed to face themselves as whole people in the classroom, as whole persons in the classroom, they will implode, explode, or they will walk away. We bring all of our emotions and all of our personality into the classroom. That's what's demanded of us. Not demanded of us, that's what we want to give because it aligns with who we are. Our work is an expression of who we are. I mean, that's powerful, isn't it? Thank you so much. My chakras are jingling a little bit now. They're quite lined up with all this negative chat about what's wrong. So I want to turn this around. Beautiful. That's like a magician. Beautiful. I want us to focus now. Turn this around. You turned up today on a Saturday because you are dedicated professionals who want to collaborate, want to know more, and you're passionate about teaching. So what makes you feel good about teaching? Over to you, please. So really focusing on who's got us. There's a study carried out by a gentleman called Axel Grund in 2015, a German researcher, and he interviewed 234 teachers, and the study is called The Long Arm of Work, and he was asking them about how they switched off from work. Now it's of no surprise to us that those over a weekend or in their evenings who were engaged in pastimes, who were detaching from work with family and friends, they were the ones who mediated stress or the effects of stress far better than others who continued to overthink, who continued to be attached in their thoughts of work and to work throughout their free time. So there's something around the boundaries and getting clear on what we are going to accept for ourselves in our own lives and what is necessary for us. I'll just quickly show you this slide just now about this idea of connectedness and compassion. Compassion is a word used far more in our educational literature than ever before, and I think it's going to continue to come through. But what we're finding now from some researchers is that it's not about survival of the fittest necessarily, it was survival of the kindest. That tribes who pooled their resources together, collaborated, and they were the ones who survived. We know from all attachment theory about mirror neurons being the basis of empathy. We also know about emotional contagion. So when I see your pain, I feel pain too. My brain is activated. My neurons are firing when I see your pain. And we also know now that self-compassion increases compassion towards ourselves, of course, but towards others. A great study carried out by Elaine Beaumont from the University of Salford in 2016 on student midwives. They were rated on how self-critical they were and how self-compassionate they were. Those who were far more self-compassionate, the patients described having a better experience of the service they were given, but those particular midwives as well were less prone to stress or any burnout symptoms. So a question to ask of you just now, but I'm going to keep going if you don't mind, just to want to get to workload. I'm going to tackle workload today. But just to consider, and it's maybe a question to consider with colleagues back in your respective schools, how are we bringing kindness into our workplace? And what opportunities do we have to develop kindness further? This may be happening in your places of work already, which is wonderful. But just something to consider about increasing that sense of well-being and connectedness with one another. Okay. So, I love a system. We're talking about systems now. Systems. Systems for self-care. Planning success for yourself. We plan success for the students, the pupils, all the time. But how often are we conscious of planning success for ourselves? And all the sessions that I do at the Hive of Wellbeing are about raising your self-awareness, raising your consciousness about what is working for you and what is no longer serving you. And just to illustrate that with an example from my own experience, as a teacher in my first year, I had the most amazing systems. I thought I was God's gift to teaching. Clearly wasn't. I had several observations, but I don't want to go into that just now. But I thought it was in my head. I had all these amazing systems in place. But then by second year, do you know what they did in my school, my second year? They changed the planning formats. Can you believe that? And since my third year, they changed the assessment formats because we changed the plan in the first year, so we're going to change. Okay. But you know what I hadn't done? I hadn't built in flexibility within my own systems. So I felt I was having to take on more and more and more instead of being a bit smarter about how I was assimilating these new aspects of working that I was being asked to do. It's a bit like the teacher, the quote from Mr. Swinney earlier, the teacher saying, if it's not part of the learner's journey, then I don't do it. If it's not part of my teacher's journey, why am I still doing this? Right? If it's really not supporting me. So one of the examples I like to talk about is the IKEA bag, you know, the Friday IKEA bag with all the writing jotters in. You're in the car park going, have a nice weekend everyone, no, I'm just taking a wee bit of work home. And you're power lifting that bag into the back of the car, you're driving it home, you're power lifting it out, you're putting it in your kitchen, and you're saying to that bad boy, I'll see you Sunday. Because I'm having a Saturday, I'll see you Sunday. Alright? And every time you go to make your dinner, you go to make a cup of tea, the bag's going, hi, hi, remember me? Oh, you're still there? Oh, mark yourself. Oh. So it doesn't always serve us, and it was one of the habits I realised I don't want to be attached to any longer. So what I decided to do was to plan for my marking. If I'm going to plan for the lessons, I need to plan opportunities and make that time myself for the marking, because I stopped taking marking home and creating those negative associations for myself at home. So I asked you to consider, and I compartmentalise things for me. I started to put things into boxes to what would support me. If I'm planning something, I'm just planning for a whole host of things, but that's planning in my head. That helps me keep it right. Pastoral care, planning for success in terms of the behaviour. They talked earlier about your punished behaviour. That teacher spoke about that. Actually, what kind of systems do I put in place that are going to support me with relationships and pastoral care in this particular class? I can't come in with that expectation that I'll just not behave, because I'm here, I'm looking at you, behave. So, what is the purpose of everything that I do? And how does everything that I do, how can it support my self-care? So what I've got in the booklet just now, in the first page, is planning for marking, how I set out planning for marking. God bless Dylan William, Paul Black, and Shirley Clark for introducing formative assessment. Saved my life, because I started to realise that peer marking, success criteria, self-marking was the way forward as well, because it rationalised some of my workload. I've also put this grid in for you just now, to ask you to consider, what are you doing with your work that's high impact, low effort? What are you doing that's high impact, high effort? What are you doing that's low impact, high effort? Now I've got that as amber. I've got that as amber because sometimes it's a hard slog to introduce something new. I remember introducing out in Abu Dhabi, the Read by Ink programme for reading and spelling for the children. And it was high effort to begin with, the training, the implementation, getting the consistency, all the assessments, and it was having a low impact initially. But by the end of the year, we got into the swing of it, we got into the way of it, and it was high impact, and it was actually far more low effort for us than it had been previously. I ask you to consider what you're doing that's low impact, low effort. Now you'll say to me, Claire, that's a ridiculous question, because everything I do is high impact, everything. And everything I do is so much of an effort, really is. There's nothing I do that is of no value. You're crazy. However, I bet there is stuff you are doing that's maybe not always serving you. So I do ask you to consider, some things that you do that actually make a difference. I'll give you an example just to illustrate it. Spelling tests, easy. Friday afternoon or Friday morning, jotters out, 1 to 10, 3 groups, 20 minutes of math time. Spell it, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 1, group 2, group 3, group, you know how it is. Then you get to your extended writing the next week. You've got 10, I've got 10 out of 10, I've got 7 out of 10, I've got 3 out of 10. Then you get to the extended writing the next week. And in the extended writing the next week, absolutely no correlation with the 10 out of 10 folk and what they've just written. Absolutely no correlation. So what's the point of the 20 minutes on a Friday? Just as an example, it's low effort and it's low impact. So why am I doing that to myself and to the children? Just to consider. So over to you for a few minutes discussion. Planning for marking, are we doing that already? What else can we plan for? How else can we cut some of the workload issues that we have? And also, can you start to consider where you would put some of the things that you do on a daily basis into which of these boxes within this matrix? Thank you so much for it. Keep us moving along, moving along. So the matrix is a very good tool to have at your desk or your workstation. Keep it there for a week. And every time you go to do something, consider, where would I put that? Where would I put that in the matrix? What has that done? So lots to consider. I hope that's useful for you. I give to you. Because in getting our systems more rationalised and trying to work on that a bit more, become more conscious about what we're doing, it can provide us with perhaps, or claw back a bit of time. Because apparently there's never enough in teaching. There's never enough time. There's never enough time. And it's so true. There never will be. There never will be. This guy Jack proved that. 24 hours. I mean, what a lot of stuff you got done. But so do you. I think you can give my good friend for his money sometimes. But I ask people to consider, you've only got 24 hours, and some people aren't even afforded that. Life really is a gift, and life is very precious. So with every moment you've got, every hour you've got, every 24 hours you've got to make it count for yourselves. You've got to enjoy it. You've got to feel good in what you're doing. And it's not always possible. I know things happen, and it's very difficult sometimes. There are great upsets. But when you're at your work, how much are you enjoying? How much of you is giving you energy? Because I think it's not about managing time. It's about managing our energy. So when we've got things to do, we've got to perhaps think about how we reframe it in order to support us in how we feel about what it is that we're doing. So one of the things I ask people to do, I'm not going to ask you to do this today because there's not the time, ironically, but it's to fill out a 24-hour diary of what you did in the last day. Now it's a good one to do it maybe midweek when you're at work, and looking at what you did over the last 24 hours, really again, marry up that matrix with some of the stuff that you're involved in, and see what are the things that you really enjoy that give you energy, and what are the things you're not enjoying, and how can you reframe it in a different way. So you can start to say, well, you know, this is a necessary part of what I have to do, but is there a way I can do this that's going to make it more enjoyable for myself? So just some things to consider. I gave this activity out, and a lady left her sheets behind before, and she shouldn't have done, because I don't talk about it at conferences like that. And she'd written from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I'll do it in the voice, I imagine she has.
From 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, I spent an hour complaining to colleagues about the assembly timetable.
And I thought to myself, well, Claire, maybe she enjoyed it, maybe that gives her energy. But you know, I'm not sure it gives her colleagues the energy that they're looking for, or the enjoyment they needed at the end of the day. So we've got to be really conscious about the unhelpful habits we've got. I think we've also got to be very conscious of the attachments we've got to some of these habits. I think that ties in very nicely with the culture. If we're going to be changing education culture, it's not necessarily going to be coming from external people coming in to rescue us about how to change our culture. We've got to take responsibility personally for some of the habits that we are involved in at times, which don't energise us, don't energise everyone else, and don't support us. You know, if you think about people on their Twitter accounts till late on at night, I'm all for that. I think, you know, that's great, so long as you're getting a good night's sleep, you are, you know, switching off your thinking. You know that Vicky Flanagan show? Are you going out? When are you off? No, really off. You know, when are you switching off from the job? So, just some things to think about, because energy is everything. Where does my energy go? Sometimes we get ourselves into a right fandango about what we cannot control. We're just like, all right, show me the change. Ask me that. Whatever that is. We're constantly trying to find out in our lives, what do we have the autonomy over? What do we have the control over? And actually, I would say, fundamentally, all you have control over is yourself. Your beliefs, your attitudes, your values, your reactions, they're all down to you. It's not that things don't upset us, but if we can reframe and if we can use our thoughts to support us and how we cope with that, maybe we can support our own energy levels too. Because I can only influence other people, I can only influence a local area and situation, I can only influence certain aspects within Scotland and the world through voting, democracy, etc. But I can't control it. So why put my energy into things I will never be able to control? Is it not better to put my energies into what I can? We have 60,000 to 120,000 of these every day. What are they? Thoughts, thank you so much. Or as one MQT said to me once, decisions. And I thought, if she's making that amount of decisions every day, she's in the wrong job. Thoughts. We apparently have this amount of thoughts every single day. And the thing about it is the research, they've counted them all. There's one, there's another one. Another one. They say that 90 to 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts that we had the day before that, and the day before that. And it makes sense because our brains are very efficient systems. We store what it is that we need. You'll all have your own routine of a morning and how you get up and when you get up, if you have breakfast first, if you shower next, or the other way round, or whatever it is. We don't really think about it, but we are thinking about it, and that's what we do, it's all there. The thing that we're not so good at is working out what is imagined and what is real in those thoughts. And those thoughts have a physiological impact on our bodies. If I could ask you for a moment just to close your eyes, promise not to rifle through your pockets and your purses. You close your eyes for a moment. I'd ask you to imagine that there's a lemon in front of you. Cut open the imaginary lemon, squeeze the imaginary lemon, and what I want you to do is to really carefully soak up all the juices from that imaginary lemon just now. Have a really good soak on the lemon. Yeah. And now I'd ask you to open your eyes, please. I will now open mine too. Oh, hello. Glad to see you all there. So I was a nerve wracking moment. Did any of you have that kind of response where you were sucking in your cheeks and you had, so we have a physiological response to something that doesn't even exist, is imagined. The brain does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. And that's why when we have thoughts about our worries, we have a stress thought about something, or about something in the future that we have no control over, our bodies respond to that. Our bodies are getting ready for it. Yeah, where's the saber-toothed tiger? Yeah, good for it. Where we go? What we do? But actually, there's no saber-toothed tiger, and there's not necessarily that imagined situation that's going to become a reality. So I ask people to consider, do you notice your thoughts? Do you notice the thoughts that make you feel good? Such as kindness thoughts, happy thoughts, really nice thoughts, what ice cream I'm having right now? Really good thoughts. Or do you only focus on the thoughts that worry you, that stress you, that make you fearful, that make you angry? What is your focus? Because your thoughts and your feelings are not who you are in essence. Those people who do mindfulness classes or meditation or do that Headspace app, they talk about thoughts being nothing more than clouds on a summer's day that are just passing by. And yet, how much do we over-identify with those thoughts and those feelings in our workplaces, in our own lives, and we hold on to those because something kicks in which says, but I'm right, or something, or I'm worried, and I just want to hold on to it. We have habitually found ways to think that we think support us, and we think protect us, but it's not necessarily always the case. And I want to bring us on to this in relation to work and workload. So, our perceptions are real. I've done quite a bit of research on the teacher burnout and teacher stress, because I'm just a cheery soul, you know? And when I've looked at all of the papers and research on teacher burnout and teacher stress, they don't talk about actual workload. Without exception, they do not talk about actual workload, actual student behaviour, or actual school leadership. They talk about our perceptions of. Now, if we've got a negative perception of workload, that we just, can't get it all, it's terrible, I just can't do it all. Yeah, because the workload is immense. Here's a thought for us. Maybe workload is unmanageable. There we go, I've said it. It's videoed, it's on record. Maybe it is. How many of you, though, have ever walked out of school going, they can all read and count now, my work here is done. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It is a constant process. We are learning all the time. And so are you. So leave it for that day. Go home, rest, come back the next day. We'll start it again. Some of it might be washed away during the night. That's all right. We'll get back to it. But we're just on this constant process. When we start to try and control all of these things that actually we can't have full control over, we start to reduce our autonomy. We start to reduce our sense of achieving something. If I've got a perception of workload that it's too much, it's all being done to me, and I'll never get it done, then guess what? I'm going to feel exhausted, and I'm going to feel burnt out with all of that. Because all the effort I'm putting into it, all the emotional energy I'm putting into it, it's just not going to serve me well. So, I'm going to finish on this slide today. I've got bags more to show you, I'm really sorry. Mr. Swinney kind of held me up a little bit. Not to be critical of the government and that, but you did, sir. That's fine, that's all right. But I'll finish on this slide for today. This is what some of our overthinking looks like. Right, Sunday night. This is your Sunday night, but what you have to do for the week. So much marketing. I'm drowning in all this. What's going to happen? Seriously. You get in on Monday morning, you sit at your desk, that's you. All fine. Right? So, train yourself to flip the script. Train that voice in your head that's going, it's a disaster, darling, it's a disaster. Run, save yourself. Train yourself to flip the script. Train yourself to get a voice that's also saying, thanks very much for sharing, but I've got this. Because I am a damn fine professional and I've got so much to share and so much to give. The 3-to-1 ratio, we do it for the kids all the time. Do you do it for yourself? Just to leave you with a quick story, went to H&M the other day, I thought, I'm going to step conference, I better buy trousers. Be smarter than that, eh? And apparently, I tried on my usual size. Apparently, I'm fatter than I was before. So that was my negative. So my first thought was, well, that was the first thought. The second thought I had, one, I thought, well, I've enjoyed every morsel of food. I'm good to go. The second thing is, it's not bikini season, so I have a fair bit to go yet, so that's all right. And the third thing is, and hopefully not after speaking to you today, but if the hive doesn't work out, I'll maybe start modelling for those bigger girl agencies. Listen, I'm sorry I've not gone through everything I'd love to get to with you today, but thank you very much for your attention. If you've enjoyed today's session, I've got cards up there if you're interested in getting in touch with me. Really happy to see you again, to come to your school. I work right across Scotland, very happy to be helicoptered in at no cost to see you all. But thanks for your time today.